What's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we have a review of Jinjer and their new album Wallflowers via Napalm Records. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Alright, so unless you have been living under a rock for the last few years, you probably know that Jinjer are a Ukrainian band that specialize in elements of groove and progressive metal. Despite this only being their fourth full-length studio album, Jinjer has seen quite a climb to the top in just 7 years or so, with a die-hard fanbase that can't seem to get enough of them.
Stop it.
I'll admit though that after how impressed I was with 2019's Macro, I also found myself caught up in the anticipation of a follow-up. And quick aside before somebody asks me for the 10,000th time, how did you review it? It's not even out yet. It's common practice for reviewers to get early access. But that out of the way, let's talk about Wallflowers. Vortex was of course the first big single, pleasing fans once again, and last I looked has amassed over 1.5 million views in just a month's time. But I'll say that I wasn't that into it on my first listen.
How dare you!
I know, I've insulted the queen. Blasphemy. I feel like y'all have made Tatiana the Beyonce of metal. But hear me out, I just didn't consider it to be as strong as, say, a Homeback or The Prophecy coming off of the big singles of the previous albums.
Hired goons.
Hired goons?
But call off the Goon Squad, I came to appreciate its different structure, with its kind of slower, more methodical, gradual build from the loungy singing parts to the ultimately very violent and aggressive conclusion. It's like a mountain climb, except when you get to the top, you get blown to pieces in a glorious volcanic eruption. Sharing some other songs that I really enjoyed, Call Me a Symbol is a crushing way to open this album. Tatiana sounds more pissed than ever on this one. It almost feels like a commentary on whether there was any question of them going soft.
Not today.
It also has a nice changeover to the singing later on, just solid track all around. Disclosure also really put a smile on my face with that first woo! It's like some Ric Flair shit going on there. Woo! This one is kind of more of a fun song, but still with the dark, ominous vibes that permeate the vast majority of this album as a whole. In a weird way, it kind of reminds me of a more advanced version of like a Kitty track. Yeah, I'm sure not everyone is going to love me saying that, but in any case, when it kicks into higher gear after the first minute or so with the more rapid-fire screams, I am reduced to putty.
Stop. Go.
Mediator was the second single, and this one is just an instant banger. I actually tried to do a reaction to it, but mostly found myself so into it that words escaped me. I love that intro with the little break before go and the resulting hailstorm of blast beats. This one is just begging for a pit of massive proportions, and I think people are ready for that. Nothing short will suffice at this point. It also just has great noodly guitar riffs and more of that great dynamic songwriting I look for in Jinjer's best material. But honestly, maybe even one step above that, I would put Copycat. This is another fantastic rager of a track with some serious D-beat for headbanging alongside more mathcore-inspired riffing. I'm definitely hearing more of that technical, djenty sixth influence coming through again on this one, but also with some just full speed ahead hardcore power chord progressions to get the blood really boiling. The clean parts are also more successfully implemented here, and just in general, the many transitions are both seamless and engaging. Another big testament to their songwriting skills when all cylinders are firing, and definitely among my favorites on the album. Sleep of the Righteous has another very sixth sounding intro to really get my head bobbing, but it also delivers on this sense of underlying sorrow despite being a very heavy song overall. There's just this thread of sadness sewn throughout both in the instrumentation and Tatiana's delivery. It makes me curious as to what this one is really about. And finally, Wallflower seems like another obvious winner for the Pisces fans out there. The bass work on this one is absolutely stunning with its warm, jazzy vibes front and center. Likewise, the singing is probably the best you'll find on the entire album. There are a lot of layers pulling this song together, and it definitely ends up being another one worth being very proud of for this band.
You're gonna be so proud.
Proud? Proud.
In some ways, I'd argue it feels even more focused and mature than Pisces. But speaking of the clean singing, my praise doesn't necessarily extend to every song. Colossus, for instance, is definitely not as successful as some of the others. This was my first time noticing that some of the singing is just not hooky enough. Like it or not, maybe it could use a little bit more pop sentiment. I like the groovy hook, and it has some great drumming later on, with Vlad killing it as usual. Also some seriously brutal, deep death growls from Tatiana. It just feels a little bit clunky as a whole. Same goes for Pearls and Swine, which kind of loses me again in its meandering, especially in contrast to the triumph that comes right before it. As a result, it ends up just being less memorable as a whole, even if it has some great individual pieces.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like, your opinion, man.
I also didn't really find myself having much to say about Dead Hands Feel No Pain or As I Boil Ice, aside from more great guitar work. They're both perfectly enjoyable songs, the latter actually pretty crushing even. But by this point in the album, they felt a little bit forgettable to me. This far in, I look for tracks like these to continue delivering curveballs to keep things interesting. Instead, they kind of offer more of the same until we again get hit with the big finish of Mediator. Stepping back from my broader thoughts on the album, my most pervasive critique is that it feels like they really need to focus in on writing stronger, clean singing sections with consistency. Tatiana's voice sounds incredible across the board, but the melodies they've chosen don't fully harness its potential as, say, on a Homeback or Pisces. I'd actually be interested to see them work at least in part with a pop producer, maybe one of them Swedish guys, to make these parts even stronger and more memorable. There's also some other more intangible elements in the vibe of this album that just bugs me, and I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is. It's as if a certain energy that was present on the previous two albums feels a little bit lacking on this one. I can't tell if it's the production or maybe something more organic. But again, put away your pitchforks, because at the end of the day, none of this was enough to ruin what is ultimately a very solid album packed with impressive performances and intriguing compositions. From the vocals and drums to the bass and guitar, it's clear that everyone is giving their all, and I'm confident with just a little more guidance in the songwriting department, we could be looking at Album of the Year material. As it stands, I give Ginger a 9 for enjoyability. I have a great time listening, and the vast majority really gets my body moving. It's just not quite a perfect 10 given some of my previous notes. I give them a 9 for musicianship. Honestly, the performances are probably just shy of a 10, but again, the relatively speaking small opportunity for potential in the compositional department still keeps me from giving a perfect score here either. And I give it an 8 for innovation. I hear enough growth and dedication to always evolving here to warrant that extra point, even if it doesn't feel like there's as much of a leap forwards as on previous efforts. So an 8.7 overall and a B+ for Ginger and Wallflowers. I can hear the rage in the comments already. It's a 10. Every album is a 10. Fake fan. You're boring, and you can feel free to stay mad. A B+ is still a win. Take the W.
Doesn't this guy deserve a fair trial?
You, back of the mob.
Back of the mob? What? This is my spot. I came early.
But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.